I'm really excited to be here exploring fearlessness with you today. When I was 18, I was raped. I was raped by a friend, by somebody I trusted. He raped me in his family's home while everyone slept. And a few years later, in a totally unrelated incident, I was again victim to another crime. A guy that I had dated the year before for a few months. He forced his way into my apartment. He blocked the entrance and exits of my apartment. He attacked me and held me against my will at knife point for 6 hours. During that evening, he had me write my last words to my family. This is my experience. So I'm very excited to be here with you tonight exploring fearlessness. And if Einstein's theory of relativity is true, well then fear and fearlessness too must be relative. Meaning that when we are witness to something, when we have an experience, it is influenced by our perspective. And this is mine. So we've all seen those posters out there. Put your hand up if you have them. The ones from Winners, Indigo. They're like, be fearless, be grateful, be amazing every day. And you probably have one over your toilet seat, I'm guessing. No? So this freaks me out a little bit, because I think that fearlessness has started to become this buzzword that we use in our culture. And sometimes when things become so popularly used, so widely used, we start to forget the value that they hold for us. And the thing that I'm afraid of for us, for me, for the world, is that when we start to use fearlessness in this way, that we bury our fears. That being fearless means that you're not allowed to have fears? Or if you have fears, are you fearless? My experience has taught me that fear is not only a survival tool, it's an important response. One which I think, if we can learn to observe it, we can learn a great deal about ourselves. In my life post-trauma, there has been a ton of very raw, very big lessons. And one of these biggest filters, one of the biggest filters for me has been this experience post-victimhood and in victimhood post-trauma. And the thing about victimhood is I didn't fit into it. I mean, I started a business when I was 21 with my business partners that turned into a wildly successful brand and has grown all over the world. I'm outgoing. I think I'm kind of brave. I'm social. I love a lot. I'm also a rape victim. I'm strong and I'm weak and I'm big and I'm small. I'm everything. But I didn't fit in to this framework of victimhood, much like what we're learning to talk about in the world right now in terms of masculinity is also very true for victimhood. There is this framework, and I just didn't fit in. And that's really stuck with me. And what I've learned from this feeling of not fitting into this framework of victimhood is that we work in absolutes. You're either full of fear or you have courage, you have gut. But we're all in the middle. we all have fears. We all live in the gray. And so this thing about fearlessness is that if we're only fighting uncertainty with extremism, with you're this or you're that, you're here or you're there, where's the learning? Where's the living? Where's the liberation? Where's the freedom? Where's the flexibility in that? With here or there or this or that or black or white or fearful or fearless. We're all in the gray. And absoluteness, it shows up in our lives in so many different ways. I have a story, it's called Sex Pickle. So the thing is that absolutism, it even shows up in the bedroom. It shows up in so many places in our lives. And when I think about how absolutism shows up in the bedroom, I think about my husband. His name is Shay, and he's totally fine with me talking about his pickle. I want to feel like there is so much flexibility and liberation and non-judgment in our relationship that even in our bedroom, if I turned to my husband and I said, you know what would really turn me on? If you'd like, take a pickle and just play with it on my butt like that. And then he wouldn't look at me with those eyes of judgment and eyes of fear, and instead he'd say, kosher or dill? Because to me, that's fun, that's flexibility, that's freedom. The idea that we're not this or that I don't fall in love and tell him, you need to be the same for the next 20 years, otherwise I won't know how to love you. Or what if I said to you, so babe, 20 years from now, you're going to be exactly as you are today, feel exactly as you are today. You'd run the opposite direction and you'd be bored as hell. You'd be like, really? The next 20 years are going to look exactly like this one? Like, there's nothing to look forward to. That's evolution. That's change. And yet, absolutism shows up in our lives and in our relationships when we fall in love and we say, I can only love you if you stay just as you are. And then when you change a little bit, I don't know what to do with you or what to do with myself. We've all been there. Love. Love is curious, whether or not you like pickles. And there is no courage in ignorance. About 50 years ago, there was a theory. It's called the bystander effect. And it was developed around an incredibly horrific, traumatic incident that took place and left a woman dead. And what this theory means is that it speaks to the greater the number of people present, the less likely a single person is to intervene. It speaks to that the more people there are, the less individually responsible we feel. How often has the bystander effect showed up in your life? How often are you a bystander? Have you been one? Have you been victim to bystanders? I have a story. It's called Sunday Brunch. And I've been thinking a lot about the bystander effect since I was on the other side of trauma, since I started to do research and dig into this work, which really, why wouldn't I? This is who I am. This is my life experience. What happened to me, it shapes so much of who I am. So why not get to know it a little bit? And I think about the bystander effect a lot. I think about who am I in any given moment? Because the decision or indecision that I make, it says a lot about me. So Sunday brunch. A few months ago, when I was in Toronto, my husband and I pulled up to our favorite place. And, you know, I won't tell you where it was, but it's like got the $22 plates that really, like, nobody should be spending $22 on brunch. And I got out of the car, and he was getting our son out of the car seat. And I'm walking towards the restaurant in this, like, abominable snow girl, -30 Toronto weather jacket. And I have this inkling. I hear about 4 or 5 guys over to the left, and they get a little louder, and all of a sudden I realize those grotesque things that they are saying, they're saying them to me. And this story is dedicated to anyone who has ever been catcalled, or to anyone who has ever catcalled someone else. And it wasn't really safe. I look over and I think about fear being that important response, and I see 4 or 5 guys, and I definitely don't walk over to the car and go lay into them. No, that's not the right decision for me in that moment. But as luck would have it for them, they walked into the restaurant a few minutes later. And I finished my brunch. I enjoyed myself and my mimosa. And I told my husband, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I had kind of told him this story of these guys, that he knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't going to the bathroom, so I kind of faked it and then beelined it for their table. And I pulled up a chair, sat down. I was like, hey guys, how you doing? They're looking at me. I'm like, you remember me? We met like 20 minutes ago. You said, you remember me? I'm Devon. Nice to meet you. You know, I thought I had to come over and get to know you, because there's just no way you would have said what you said if you knew how it made me feel. And I didn't want to assume that you're just a bunch of bad guys. I'm going to assume that you're not, actually. So I hope that you'll listen to me for a few minutes. And what I proceeded to tell them was that, in fact, I was a victim of rape, what happened to me, that I was also breastfeeding my son in the other room, and that when these comments get said, they make me feel like I'm not free in my own body. And I turned to the guy at the end of my little bit, my little session, my brunch session, at the back of the room, the one who was kind of the shit disturber. There's always a shit disturber in a group, right? He was the shit disturber, and I looked back at him, and I said, because man, if I was your mother, your sister, your girlfriend, and you saw another man say and do to me what you just did, you would go punch that guy straight in the face and not think about it, because it would have made you angry. And you know what? Rage is easier. It would have been so much easier to walk over here and say, you're disgusting, you pigs. But I don't think you're pigs. I don't think you know the effect that you have. So thank you for listening. The thing is that rage would have been easier, but love, what I was able to do with those guys in that moment at Sunday brunch, that was love. That was responding to fear with compassion. And it is always harder, and it is so much more awakening. The thing is, without fear, there is no fearlessness. Freedom begins in acceptance, awareness, and affirmation. Have the difficult conversation. The truth is that the truth is always pretty uncomfortable and worth it. Ask the question that burns, the one you've been wanting to ask him, her, yourself. And then be patient. Wait around long enough to hear the reply, to feel it. Because what are you afraid of? Thank you.